Before we get into this, I want to give a huge thank you to both the Cube 17 and my partner BurgundyPetal. The two of them together have contributed so much to this route, it's really, really hard to overstate. Like, this would not have been possible if it weren't for them assisting in all of the research that went into this. It's just been completely insane, honestly. To start out, we want to launch the ritual mission from a final checkpoint in Savathuns Throneworld. If you don't launch it from the checkpoint, this won't work. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to drop in, progress all the way up to the final checkpoint, and then relaunch the mission to get back into it at the right spot. And to be able to trigger this auto-res, at least one person is going to need Salvation's Grip, and pretty much everyone is going to want to have Skyburner's Oath. Though you can get away with just one person having Skyburners, which is what we actually do in this route. We end up with only one person using Skyburners. As soon as you spawn in, you want everyone except for the main person using Salvation's Grip to die without setting any spawns. This is so that you can use Salvation's Grip to fall back or like to block the spawn points to fall back. After all of your crystals have actually been planted where you need them, then you need to jump backwards far enough to actually cause Savathun to spawn in and to start the encounter. This will allow us to have both encounters running at the same time, which will be useful later on. At this point, all players that are going to be benefiting from the auto-res need to maintain jumping at all times. If you set even a single spawn past this point, the entire thing is messed up and you're going to need to reset. Now, as you approach the top of this hill, the second copy of Savathun is going to spawn from the previous encounter. This only works if you start from a checkpoint, and this is actually why we had to use a checkpoint. After this encounter actually starts, joining allies is triggered everywhere except for within the arena. If you are grabbed by this joining allies, you will be locked on a black screen, so I highly, highly, highly recommend that everyone in the fire team do the fallback, because it's going to be about a minute before they're able to get back in. Progress through the encounter until after you kill all three Lightbearer enemies, or Lightbearing Hive. Though make sure that the people who are jumping aren't the ones that finish the ghost. Make sure that somebody is able to set spawns and that they're the one that's actually finishing off the ghost. After all three Lightbearer Knights are dead, go around behind one of these two buildings on either side, and have the person who is comfortable setting spawns use Skyburner's Oath and any sort of damaging buffs like Bolt Charge or potentially even a Well to deal damage to the Savathun that's across the lake. The goal from this is to get Ghosts to actually start their voice line, which will come with an additional joining allies and pull you back to the other side of the river. It's insanely important that you don't kill the Savathun on the side of the river with the elevator. If you do, it's going to be a reset and you're going to have to start all the way over from the beginning again.
Showing her the truth won't stop her, but we need to try.
As the joining allies is triggering, or rather while the joining allies has your screen faded to black, any person who is not setting spawns needs to be mashing jump to make sure that they don't set a spawn after the teleport finishes. At this point, wander around and kill the three clones of Savathun, and have the player who's comfortable setting spawns, the player who's not jumping around, collect the 3 different stacks of Glassbreaker. With the broken encounter, you might end up with additional stacks, and it's okay if the players who are trying not to set spawns grab those, but you need to make sure that the person who is setting spawns ends up with 3 stacks, that way they can progress the mission later. At this point, have the person who is comfortable setting spawns use Skyburners to shoot across the river at the Savathun that's on the other side. Their goal isn't to kill her, but instead to get her health to the point where it's at a very, very, very low level. Maybe 1 or 2 additional shots to kill her off. I consider this priming the health bar, and it's going to be useful later just to save time. Once that's done, you're good to turn around and actually deposit the stacks of Glassbreaker to begin the teleport process. A couple of things of note. While the teleport is going on, any and all players that are avoiding setting spawns need to be mashing jump. If they set a spawn at the bottom of these stairs here, it just completely kills the run. On top of that, if they decide to go through any of the portals to kill the wizards, they need to have a way to sword fly or like maintain being in the air to get back, because if they allow the teleport effect to send them back, they'll set a spawn and kill the run. It's honestly safer to just have them not like go out and kill the wizards. After all three of them are dead, you can use the interact prompt to trigger the voice lines. And as the teleport sequence from returning back from the Ascendant realm plays, again, all players not setting spawns need to mash jump. It is possible to end up with adjoining allies here. If you do get one, that's fine. Just keep mashing jump through it. At this point, it's business as usual. Continue to deal damage to Savathun until she runs away. But make sure you're staying pretty far away from her. You don't want to accidentally trigger the teleport sequence back. At this point, one player needs to approach the light to teleport into the Ascendant plane, while the other player finishes off Savathun as the transition sequence finishes up. The goal is to have her die the moment you teleport, that way all players who are avoiding setting spawns can jump off and die. As soon as they hit the kill barrier, the auto-res from killing the clone of Savathun should trigger and revive them, and then at this point they're free to wander around to wherever they want in the patrol space. They're now ready to go set their IRB point, hit their death to load, and proceed with it from there. I'm going to do an IRB out of Temple of the Navigator, just to show a route that uses this auto-res, though you could use this in pretty much any load zone. The only place that you couldn't do this in is the final load of the final mission, so where the auto-res is coming from, and I'll explain why that's the case later on. For right now, I'm going to come over here and die to set my IRB point. I do set it in the wrong spot, but luckily it ends up pretty much working out as intended. Apparently you need to be on the lower ledge to set this IRB point, not the upper ledge. But from here, continue through the Lightblade Strike until you end up in the large mausoleum type room. And there's a hole up above the map that you can use to get over the wall. Again, none of this is actually necessary for using the auto-res. This is just a different IRB for the proof of concept. Once you're thoroughly out of bounds, continue around the right-hand side of this large circular room. There's push barrier on the left, so you do need to actually go around the right-hand side. And make your way all the way to the very, very far end of this hallway here. And don't mind this jump cut here in a second. I messed up my death to load the first time, so I had to go back and retry it. But just drop down the left-hand side until you can get onto this lower level. Try and bisect yourself on this ledge and tap walk forward until you hit the load trigger. This should kill you 100% of the time. And there it is, the death to load. At this point, you can have your player that's still in the Ascendant realm progress through the activity. After you've killed off the 3 witches, proceed back to the main area and kill off the 3 avatars of Savathun. And then it is okay to approach and trigger the voice line. The voice line finishing is what's your actual auto-res. The one thing to look out for is that the person or any players who are in this load when they trigger the voice line need to change characters to leave the load as quickly as possible. If you do not do this, adjoining allies will happen after they teleport back to the upper section, and you'll be pulled back inbounds, back into the mission area.